Greetings and bienvenue, Midnight Crew. Thank you for returning to this broadcast, and welcome to new viewers joining us for the first time. If you like a video, then feel free to subscribe.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Does anyone have any creepy friend whom I haven't heard from in years stories?
All my life, I had lived in small, secluded towns in northern Canada. For about 8 years, we lived in a town that was hours from any major place. At the time, this town was hardly on any map. Within the town, I went to the only high school around, which was a 45-minute drive from my house. There was also another family and their 12 children that attended that school. It didn't take me long to notice that there was something off about these kids. There was one in my grade. He was pretty cool and seemingly normal most of the time. We became pretty good friends. However, in the grades below, the other kids seemed to look more fucked up. There were 2 in the 11th grade that looked pretty normal. One was a guy named Kyle, the other a girl named Brittany. Although they looked normal, the way they acted was off. They were always so close to each other, I've even seen them sitting on each other's laps. I was a little weirded out, but I never said anything. In the lower grades, there were 4 others spread out between grades 10 and 9, 2 sets of twins. These kids, however, looked different. They all looked the same, but the younger 2 had more deformities. One had something messed up with their hand. The other's eyes looked more sunken in. There were 4 other, much younger children in the family that were downright scary and hard to look at. Every one of the kids had the same features: black hair, dead-looking eyes, pale, ashy skin, and their voices were disturbingly similar. I spent a few years hanging out with the older one. As I said, he was completely normal. I remember we would always hang out at my place, though. He would be quick to protest anything involving people going to his house, as if he was scared of having us there or something. A lot of people would talk about that family. Specific things I would hear were about the younger kids and how the parents were strange people. I never met any of them in person, but I've seen pictures. The parents had the same look, but they also looked like they haven't eaten or been outside in years. They looked sickly pale and scary skinny. Many times child services were called to their house. I don't really know what went down there. But those younger kids were so fucked up. One was always sick, and his general face structure was off. His eyes were extremely sunken in. His skin had a gray tint to it. His hair was stringy and patches were missing a lot. The other, also a boy, had the same facial deformities, but it was accompanied with mental problems. He was so violent. In 1992, I finally moved out of that town and lost touch with my friend. In 1998, I heard through another friend from the same place that the family is confirmed for committing incest. The 2 youngest that I knew were the children of the 2 siblings I knew in 11th grade. After that, they had more kids that came out, even more fucked up. My friend moved far, far away at the age of 20, right after graduation, and was never heard from again. Fuck small towns.
My younger sister was dating the son of my high school computer teacher, who passed away 3 years ago due to a lifetime of heart problems. He is 7 years younger than me. When I was about 15, I remember my teacher telling us that his son had killed a bird, and he found him picking off its feathers, and that he was interested in taxidermy. He liked hunting, and was really interested in carving things, and wanted to join the military after high school. My sister eventually broke up with him because he was mentally unstable. In April, my cousin and uncle were around our house doing some plumbing work or something. During that time, my mom noticed a large jug of water and a lighter sitting on a big rock by our shed. She figured it belonged to my cousin or uncle, but they never picked them up, so she eventually threw the items away. Last month, my mom called and told me she was gardening by the shed and found a 10-inch survival knife hidden in a hole dug underneath our shed. My mom usually gets home from work around 11 p.m. I'm worried my sister's ex-boyfriend is going to murder my family.
A few years ago, I was in a band with 3 brothers. Adam was the oldest, 18, and Jason and Matthew, Maddie is their stepbrother, were 16, the same age as me. So one day Adam and Jay show up to band practice with a metric shitton of shrooms, and they just destroyed them. As time progressed, Adam and Jay stopped showing for band practice, and Maddie told me that they spent most of their time high. One night that I was sleeping over, they didn't come back from their extravagant late night, and we went to get their father. It was about 2 a.m. or some shit, and we were searching through the woods for the two. We eventually found them strung out. They had built a small shack around a fallen tree out of branches and tall grass. We can't get them out, and the father is afraid to call the cops and have them taken away. Days later, they don't come back, and we leave food for them outside the shack. Eventually, we all had enough and went to hunt them down with shovels and rope for protection. By now, they must have been on something else because they were going crazy and violent. We see Jay first. He had completely shaved off all of his hair. Soon after, we see Adam in the same state. Maddie and their father wrestled them down and tied their hands up so we could get them back to the house. A few more days go by and their dad sends them out to rehab. They were obviously on something other than shrooms, and they were not taking withdrawal well. Maddie and I go back to where they were camping out and find a journal, a hatchet, piles of hair, some razors, and this heap of thin trees. We read through the journal, and it explained how they believed that a spider god was living in the sun, and told them that if they shaved off all of their hair, it would grow inverted, and they'd develop superpowers. Also, we read that the heap of trees was supposed to be the stairway to heaven. I haven't seen Jason since then, but Maddie had told me that he had moved in with his mother. Adam is still around here, but the guy is fucking fried. He walks around all day with a toothbrush in his mouth singing Chris Brown music. He also loses his shit if his toothbrush gets taken from him and goes into a blind rage.
I had an odd buddy. As a kid, I would just say he was unique, but in retrospect, I believe he was autistic. Not the 4chan kind, but actual autism. He always wore the same clothes, only changed when his mum forced him to. He was really into numbers, would devour math books, and memorized all the numbers he saw on our weekly hangouts in the arcade. He did not know how to meet new people. If new people joined the group, he would not stop talking to them and ask if they knew Anime X or Manga Y. He built Lego transformation medals and wore them in public up to the age of 20. He painted Naruto symbols on his forehead. He believed he could make Pokemon real if he prayed a lot and practiced his materializing skills. He always smelled like onions. Always. He would hide in garbage bins because they were warp portals to Digivolve. Also did this in public once. Climbed in a half-full garbage bin on the street and would not come out. He was an outcast at school and blamed it on his unique skills and superior intellect.
Greg. Greg was an ideal kid. Soccer team, really into BMX, science, and a solid B student. Had manners better than most teachers, and a lot of girls really dug him. Surprisingly popular kid. The summer of me going into Soph. In our high school years, we ended up being friends. He introduced me to the other guys who would make up our crew, so to speak. Joey, Dakota, Patrick, and Andy. In public, Greg was honestly the kid to be in a sense. In private, he was a disturbed, violent, perverted fuck. Around us, he'd constantly talk shit about us. Like most kids, it's usually shit talking, but he'd take it a step farther. Like Joey, he mentioned how he'd Chris Chan the guy's sister, who was 9 at the time, and constantly mock how Patrick's grandma died on his birthday. He was like a short-fused guy as well. He got mad at me because I got into an argument with him about art, and he just blurted about how he'll force me to be his slave. Just really out of the blue shit like that. He'd also spend hours looking at and watching gore videos and collecting pictures related to human experimentation, diseases, disfigurements. He'd call us weak for not embracing reality or some shit. Around homecoming is when shit hits the fan. See, we did shit as a group a lot, because Greg legit had that kind of control over us. And if one person was missing, we'd all be getting shitted on and screamed at, or in Patrick's cases, slapped and punched. Well, Joey basically manned up more than we did and decided to go with other friends. After homecoming let out, we followed Greg on his way to confront Joey in the parking lot of the school. Greg flipped the fuck out and just began assaulting Joey and chased him and the girl he was with through the woods behind our school. I legit thought he killed them because when he came back, he had the most blankest look on his face, which turned to a wicked smirk. I get chills just thinking about it now. After winter break, I and Dakota were hanging out at Greg's house. Dakota later informed me that he invited me over because he had a bad feeling about being alone with Greg this time, playing Xbox, when Greg came out in the living room holding handcuffs. Now, of course, we laugh even as he was putting it on, until he stepped in front of the TV and turned the Xbox off and told us to go to his parents' room for a mission. At this point, I stood up and told him no. Dakota sat there shaking. Greg lunged towards me screaming and started throwing punches at me. Dakota thankfully managed to get a hold of Greg's hands, allowing me to free myself from under him, and I managed to chin check that fucker, knocking him out cold. Me and Dakota both bolted from his house scared out of our fucking minds. Later that night, the freak called a dozen times, leaving me messages about me being his slave and obscene, creepy shit like that. The last message he left on my phone, he said in a whisper before letting out an ear-piercing scream. Thankfully, the fucker got expelled from school about a week after this incident, because he had threatened to gut a special needs kid for spitting on him. The officials went through his locker and found several knives along with a bunch of weird occult shit about sacrifices and torture, really depraved shit. After high school, I left to California for good. I still keep in touch with a few of the guys. Last I heard of Greg was that he was in and out of rehab, walking the streets aimlessly, couch surfing with either his grandparents or his ex-girlfriend.
Fucking narcissism, man. That shit destroys friendships. I lost my best friend because he started showing narcissistic traits at around the age of 26, until he gradually became unbearable. Always belittling and insulting everyone. Always reminding us how much better he is than all of us, and he always did it unprovoked. He also developed a drinking problem which didn't help at all. One day we all decided to have a BBQ, It started nice until he got drunk and started doing his thing. I couldn't take it anymore, so I confronted him, said some really nasty things. The worst one was, "I hope you get cancer." That night our friendship died. 6 years later and nothing has changed. He is less of a dick, but still a dick. We still hang out, but I don't think he knows that I'm filled with anger and sadness when he's around.
In elementary school, I used to sit next to a kid named Matt on the bus. He would always tell all these scary stories as entertainment. Later, I learned most of them were cheesy horror flicks, like Uncle Sam and Jack Frost. He was the kid who eventually started wearing those bondage pants, pick-related, and painted his nails black. Well, anyway, he would always get into trouble for sticking his hands down girls' pants at recess. He would also do weird things with bugs, like stick them up his nose or let them crawl all over him. I remember he told me once that he liked to lay out in his grandpa's field and pretend to be dead so he could catch and kill buzzards. He was over for a sleepover once with my friend John. He grabbed a steak knife and walked around like a zombie or a robot or something and kept stabbing my wall. My mother, of course, lost her shit. The last time I saw him was in Spanish class when I was in high school. The teacher was talking about Mexican culture and something about a room where the father could conduct his affairs. He thought this was the funniest thing and proceeded to laugh manically about the father fucking strange women in his office. When I say laugh manically, I mean disrupt the entire class for 10 minutes. Tears in eyes and everything.
My school from 1st to 5th grade was a weird elementary that had a 50-50 makeup of middle class and extremely dirt-poor kids. There were quite a few who came from really fucked up, abusive homes. Let's see. There was Anthony. He was already smoking by the age of 6. He lived with his dad. His mom died. His house was almost a lean-to, and he never had cold pop until visiting my house. He grabbed the teacher's legs and tried to strangle a kid on the playground. Like actually tried to strangle him. He was in and out of juvie until high school. He seemed to start getting his shit together. Then all of a sudden he was gone again. Ran into him junior year, said, "They kicked me out. I drew a knife on the principal, then gone again." When I was 24, I was on a convict database and found his name. He was doing time for armed robbery. Last year, I found his Facebook. No pic, all private. Still see that scrawny, kinda sketchy, kinda cool little dude with blonde dandelion hair and bright eyes. Real sad. I've got a few more. Then there were the Otis kids. A bunch of red-haired kids with smoothed-out, narrow features and large foreheads, completely covered in freckles. There were 3 of them in my same grade, and then 3 spread out above and below. The ones above were a little more cognitive, but still squirrely and strange. One who was a 4th grader kept trying to kiss 1st graders and kindergarten kids. The one I saw most frequently in my grade was constantly trying to sit on the teacher's lap. He smelled horrible, like dog manure. He had a couple teeth in his head, and I'm pretty sure he wore diapers after 2nd grade. They had to take him to the bathroom on his own. But the ones who were really creepy were the younger Otis boys. They just looked like God never lived inside them at all. They were 2 boys that had shifty little smiles. They had big bloody patches in their scalps and usually some bruises on their face and arms. They ran out and tore dying animals apart with their bare hands like savages. Anyways, the story goes on. In my adult years, I found out there was a huge Otis family that lived out by the tracks. Tons and tons of children, all with the same red hair and bad features. I guess it was one of those families that constantly kept impregnating one or two sisters and a mom all the time. Social services intervened eventually and split the house up. Fucked up shit. I bet good money there were a few bodies buried behind the shack. Otises that died from illness, misadventure, abuse, and they never reported. Like a pet cemetery.
Ugh. My town has a family like that. They live down a dirt road off of a main street. Weirdly enough, if you try walking down that road, you will pretty much consistently hear either banjo music or a harmonica. Sometimes both. I don't even think they do it on purpose. They live in a decrepit old plantation house that they're probably squatting on by this point. The dad's an alcoholic, just like his dad. The mom is probably the first fresh genetic injection the family has gotten in 3 or 4 generations. She used to be a prostitute before she got knocked up and married into a family with Billy Bob Sawgrass and the brother cousins. They're disturbing-looking people. They all have dirt-colored cheeks and these awful black eyes. They don't have philtrum, that crease most people have in their upper lip. None of them have it. It's terrifying. Their kids are constantly filthy. They have like 11 of them. Apparently the dad's brother and his wife live back there too, but you never see them. I don't think they ever leave the property. Some of the kids could be theirs. They're creepy and hard to look at, but they don't really hurt anybody. They're weirdly law-abiding for a bunch of backwoods yokels. The only thing the police ever get called back there for is noise complaints.
Just gotta say, man, you ranted for a good chunk about how weird and creepy these people were just because they were poor and ugly. I mean, they didn't even do anything wrong. TLDR. You really seem like you're a shittier person than them.
I am from Germany. It is kind of disliked if you are proud of the country or anything German because of our past. One of the kids in high school had his problems with that and would constantly pretend that he was Spanish, French, Swiss, or anything else. Whenever there are football matches, people would decorate their houses and cars with flags. The little awkward fellow always turned crazy and confused then. He would creep around at night to find the master of confusion because of his gigantic identification problems. He dressed like Sinterklaas, because that is not German, and packed many flags in his huge bag. Despite his German name, his German looks, and his German family, he still pretends to be some other nationality. 10 years later, he moved away and is now living in Canada, pretending to be French.
I've been surrounded by crazy people my entire life, to the point that a therapist said he was shocked I hadn't snapped yet. I was just telling the current girl I'm dating a bit about my parents and childhood, and she's a little nutty herself. Who else would someone like me date but nuts? But she's a psychology major, and she said statistically I should have off myself or gone on a rampage by now. Anyway, I'll start with the example of the most minor story I can think of. I knew this irritating kid online and met him through a friend. Everyone who knew him had to eventually create a new screen name to get away from him. He was irritating and obsessive. He was half black and half white, lived with his grandparents because his mom kicked him out. He dropped out of school at around 12. He just sat online all day, talking himself up and making fake screen names to pester people with. The kid was a total sociopath who became obsessed with the idea that he was God, and everyone else was just a figment of his imagination. He had an Xbox, which he described as a roach farm. His house was apparently full of roaches. He said he'd catch them in boxes and force them to fight and eat each other, and then whichever was the last one alive he'd release back into the population, believing it was now his ally and would eat the other roaches. I just thought that was disgusting, but I stopped wanting to talk to him when he told me he was going to do this same thing with animals too. He messaged me with an account of a girl he claimed was a millionaire, and she similarly told stories about being outrageously wealthy. He had 2 girlfriends online. The first was a girl he was terribly abusive with. He was constantly cheating on her online with other girls, cybering with everyone, but he flipped out if she so much as talked to another guy. She cut contact with him when she discovered he found her address and was planning to show up and live with her, intending to live under her bed or in her closet so her parents wouldn't know he was there. His second girlfriend was a girl we both knew as an acquaintance. I pointed out she was pretty during a conversation once, and he became obsessed with making her go out with him subsequently. Sometime later, he messaged me very proud he'd gotten her to go out with him. She messaged me with a new account a few days later, saying she was having to give up her old screen name because she couldn't deal with him anymore. When she would block him, he'd just make a new screen name to pester her, and she said she only agreed to online date him because he would send her hundreds of messages threatening to off himself if she didn't. For a period, he was obsessed with me for some reason. He became obsessed with proving me wrong, so he'd message me at all hours of the day and just start random arguments about obscure, nonsensical shit. In particular, how can you prove I'm not God? Eventually, I just gave up and made a new screen name to be rid of him, as did everyone who dealt with him.
There's that kid in middle school who obviously had fetal alcohol syndrome, was pretty tough for his age, and was a complete hyperactive dumbass. The teacher made him sit at my table, so he decided I would be his friend. I was a massive coward back then, so I didn't try to convince him of the contrary. That shithead beat me up for almost no reason, so I figured he'd kill me or some shit if I told him I didn't want anything to do with him. He was obviously mentally challenged, and his only achievement in life was owning an abridged version of Vendredi ou la vie sauvage, because ever since the teacher mentioned that book, he brought it in class every single day and mentioned it every single day to the teacher. He spoke up in class all the time about stupid shit. He fell in love with a girl and started stalking her and tried seducing her in an extremely forceful and clumsy way. And when he finally understood that she hated his guts, he cut his fingers with scissors to guilt-trip her into liking him. Fortunately for me, I had made another friend after a few months, a guy who was even stronger than him. So when that douchebag tried beating me up again, my new friend helped me by kicking his ass. Never bothered me again. He was expelled a few days before the end of the school year. By then, the teacher would usually make him spend most of the day in the corridor because he was tired of putting up with his shit. But for some fucking reason that day, the retard refused to get out. So the teacher ran after him around the classroom, finally caught him, physically threw him out, and locked the door. Everyone, including me, was laughing his ass off. I remember that he tried waving at me from the corridor. There were windows in the inner classroom wall, and I flipped him off. Fuck this guy. I don't care if his mom died or abused him or whatever. Fuck him. I heard that he tried behaving from then on. But it's been 14 years.
I hope that you enjoyed tonight's broadcast. If you enjoyed tonight's story, then please subscribe to the channel as more Greentext will appear daily. A new broadcast will appear when the clock strikes midnight Central Time.